Hey besties, it's me, Sabrina from Sabrina Reads and Roams, and today we're going to talk about the 17 books that I read in the month of September, which is an insane amount of books, but it is what it is. I typically just talk through the books in the order that I read them. However, that's not what we're going to do this time around. We're going to have some questions from the Peanut Gallery, otherwise known as the man behind the brand, Mr. Sabrina Reads and Roams. He's been helping me out a lot while I have my migraine. So without further ado, I'm gonna let him do whatever he's planning to do, and then we're gonna talk about these books.
Without further ado, let's do further. I have 25 questions here for you, give or take, depending on how your answers and how your fatigue level is going. And you're just going to simply answer them using the 17 books as your range of solutions. So first and foremost, which book made you feel the most emotionally invested?
Ooh. Okay, I know. This will have been Our Infinite Fates. This book, I was just hooked into it from start to finish. The longer the story went on, and it wasn't a long story, it's a pretty short book, but the longer this story went on, the more I was like, and then what happened? And I was so into the love story of it all. This one had me hooked in there. Like, I can't even tell you how like off kilter it had me. I read this in my hardcover lovers reading vlog, so I'll link that up there for you if you want to go see that and see my genuine reactions to this. But Our Infinite Fates, I would read this again, and I am not a rereader of books. Like, that's how much I was into this story. And I mean, I love love, so yeah, Our Infinite Fates.
So for our hrcyed stats, I'm just going to put them up on a blank screen like this after I talk about each book. And you can see for this one that I was able to credit Our Infinite Fates with gender fluid under the queer alphabet. And then I also used it for spooky creatures under other creatures because it features the devil. And I was able to credit 3 hrcyed points for this.
So that book was one that you were emotionally invested with. What book do you think challenged you either intellectually or philosophically?
Oh, hands down, that was One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This. This was a library checkout book, so I don't have it with me anymore physically, but this was a nonfiction. It was a political autobiography, and the author essentially has disrupted everything I thought I knew about the Western world. That sounds dramatic, but like, I read this at this point well over a month ago, and I am still thinking about it. And kind of like my big takeaway from that book was that America is bad. Like, on the world stage, like, we're bad. And a lot of us put up with it, are enjoying the protections of being the big bad wolf, because I think the quote in the book was, it's better to be on this side of the missile than on the other side. And that blew my mind, and I still don't know what to do with it. But yes, yeah, I don't even know what else to say. Like, I'm still so like blown away by that book in both a good way and a like, oh my God way. So yes.
So for One Day, I was able to credit this under the BIPOC challenge because our author was Middle Eastern, or I think I should have written Egyptian there. Whoopsies. And then also under the nonfiction challenge. Finally got an entry on here because this is a political autobiography. And it earned me 11 points, bringing our total to 14 so far.
So now, which book, by contrast, was probably the least effective at holding your attention or focus?
Least effective at holding my attention was Red as Flame. So that is the 3rd book in the Darkwood trilogy series that I was listening to on audiobook. It was a good book. I think the series overall probably only needed to be 2 books. And so the 3rd book, there was a lot of repetition in the book that I felt like just, I already knew that. So that's kind of what happens when you binge a series versus reading it each year as it comes out, or each couple of years as it comes out. You don't really need that refresher. So a lot of times I found my mind like kind of drifting, and especially with an audiobook when I'm physically doing something else with my hands, it was difficult to hold my attention. But then at the end, I locked in. Like when we got into like the crux of the story of book 3, like what this was going to be, I was locked in for that. So yeah, Red as Flame.
So I used Red as Flame to meet the third book in our trilogy for the series Staircase. We'll get back to the second book in just a second. And then I also used it in the Decades Challenge for 2022. And it earned me a total of 6 points and bringing our new total up to 20.
So, which book would you say had the most engaging or well-paced plot?
Okay, that would have been The Prison Healer. I started this. It's on Kindle Unlimited. I read it for a couple of different prompts that I needed to fill in the month of September. And I was not expecting that much of this book. Not that I thought it was going to be bad. I just wasn't sure that it was going to be amazing. And it was like page after page. I mean, it was on my Kindle, so it's less dramatic, but you know, page after page after page. I was like, what? And then what happened? And when I got to the end, when I tell you the twist at the end, diabolical. I went off on a tirade about this on Instagram, over on my Instagram. Listen, what? I think what I said about this was more like The Prison Liar. So, yeah, that was such a good book, and it came out of nowhere. I was not expecting it to be a banger, but it was. So, yes, The Prison Healer really got me like that.
So, The Prison Healer brings us our first entry in the subgenres of choice with a dystopian fantasy, and it also brought us to Around the World for Australasia because our author, Lynette Noni, is from Australia. Unfortunately, this book did not earn me any points in hrcyed, but it was such an incredible read, I'll forgive it of that sin.
So this next question, I'm combining two into one here, because they seem very similar. Which book's plot had a plot twist that stood out? Either very clever or disappointing. Obviously, you don't need to ruin the plot twist, but which one had a shocking plot twist, whether good or bad?
Okay, well, so obviously I just mentioned the plot twist in The Prison Healer, but let me think if there's another one that had a really good plot twist, either good or bad. Okay, I got it. So this is another library book that I need to turn back in. This is Coup de Grace by Sophia Ajram. This book, and I'm not going to say anything about what the twist was because I think it's worth going into reading the book without knowing much about it. This book, the twist, once you get to about the last third of the book, it's good, y'all. It's good. This was a good read. This one, did I pull this one? Oh, this was the very long prompt that I had, which was to pick a book that was blurbed by a bunch of different authors. One of those authors had to be an author that you already know and love, and then the other one was an author you've never heard of, and then so you have to read a book by the author who you've never heard of that blurbed the other book. Did you follow all that? So this was the book written by the author I've never heard of, Sophia Ajram, and I would love to read more of their work. I don't know, I think they have one other short story book, and I think I'm gonna be reading that very, very soon because the way that they wrote this book, so well done. So yeah, coup de grace.
Okay, Coup de Grace comes in under our queer alphabet because our author, Sophia Ajram, is trans. And it also comes in under the Disability Rep Challenge because the main character is suffering from crippling depression. This book got me 6 points for the month, bringing our monthly total up to 26.
All right, so of the books you read, which characters felt the most real and which ones kind of felt the most flat?
So for characters that felt the most real, I'm going to go with the characters in the names. This book had so many things in it, and it all was just so heartbreaking, and I really felt like I was in the story with them. Like, they were people that I knew. And so, just briefly, there's domestic violence in the book, and I feel like it was portrayed pretty well, and I felt like the characters, their response to everything that was going on in the book, in their lives, I felt like that was very real. And there's a particular part towards the end, again, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but there's a particular part towards the end where Bear has a situation, and that did it for me. So I feel like these were the most real, the most like I could actually see these being real people, characters out of the lot that I read last month.
Okay, so I was only able to find one place to put the names, and that is in the Decades Challenge under 2025. I did try really hard to find another place to put it, but that's okay. Anyway, this book earned me 3 points for the month, bringing our monthly total up to 29.
And for characters that felt flat, oh, okay, all right, I got it. Summer in the City. It's a billionaire romance, and I remember saying while I was reading this that the billionaire felt like a billionaire who wasn't aware of what billionaires do. So, I mean, Jeff Bezos rented a city in Italy to get married. He built a spaceship and went to space. This guy's like, let me take you to dinner on the Eiffel Tower. Like, that's millionaire behavior, not billionaire behavior. And I mean, I get that that's like a weird distinction to make, but it didn't feel real. It didn't feel believable. And then the characters themselves didn't really have any substance to them. It was just kind of like, all right, yeah, okay, it's a cute love story. And I think the point of it was to talk about New York City. And the characters were kind of just there on the side. So I don't know. They fell flat for me, and yeah, that's what I can say about that. So Summer in the City.
Y'all see this screen is blank. That's because Summer in the City didn't count for nothing. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. It did earn me 6 points, bringing our total to 35, but that's about it.
Which author's writing style did you enjoy the most? And which one felt either clunky, repetitive, or was just hard to follow?
Okay, let me do those backwards. So the author whose writing style I felt was like clunky, repetitive, hard to follow, that would be The Bleeding Woods. In this book, there are multiple POVs, and every time we switch POVs, we backtrack in the story. Like, we restart the previous scene. It's so unnecessary, and it made the book feel like it was a billion pages long, even though it was only like 300 something. I didn't find that it added to the story to get the other POV's perspective on the scene that we just finished. It just didn't really add anything to the story, and it made it difficult to follow the progression of the story, if that makes sense, because we just continuously going back. And so, yeah, I wanted the story to keep moving forward. It was difficult for me. It was a difficult read. And I enjoyed the premise of the story, and I'm mad that we had to keep doing that, because if I were a DNFer, I would have DNF'd that book. So it's just because I refused to DNF anything that I finished it. So, yeah.
So The Bleeding Woods was used to meet my self-challenge prompt, in which I challenged myself to read an arc every single month and to leave a detailed review of it over on Instagram. So I did that for September with this book, and it earned me 10 points, bringing our grand total up to 45.
So I would say that the writing style that I enjoyed the most, our girl Kristen Hanna. So I read The Four Winds, and this is the second Kristen Hanna that I've read. So I read The Women a couple of months ago, earlier this year, and I loved it. And I felt the same way about The Four Winds. There is something about the way she writes her characters, tells her story, and brings the characters through the story that just is magical for me. And I mean, this is not a knock, even though it kind of sounds like a negative. It's not that her writing is fantastical. It's not that it is magical, takes you to another plane. It's just that it's so well done from every single aspect that it's hard not to be in the book and having the time of your life. And to me, that's a credit to her writing. So, you know, you can have really good writing, but your plot ideas are not that great. You can have really good writing, but your characters are not that great. She does all of it so well, and it's because of her writing, in my opinion. So Kristen Hanna, The Four Winds, just, there were tears. There were tears, and it was exactly what I was expecting. And I got my Kristen Hanna fix for a while. I want to read more of her books, but you know, you got to pace yourself, because it's like, whew, the emotions that come with her books and her writing are a lot. So yes, Kristen Hanna with The Four Winds.
So The Four Winds brings us air under Become the Avatar. And I mean, air, wind, like that makes sense to me. Plus the little wheat stalks look like they're blowing in the air. Okay, work with me on this one. So technically I'm done with Become the Avatar. However, I would like to do the bonus, which is to read the books with the words in the title as well. So I'm going to say I'm 50% done, even though technically I'm totally done. And anyway, this book gave us 2 points, bringing us up to 47.
What character should win the Smartest Character Award?
Okay, I think that should go to our main character from the book Isola. And I read that such a long time ago, I cannot remember what her name was. But our girl was going through it. I mean, her uncle, like her parents died. Her uncle took all of her inheritance instead of taking care of her. She gets abandoned on an island with no, like, anything on it, and she figures out a way to not only persevere, to survive, to fight her way back to where she needs to be, and to turn her story around. And basically, like Queen Petty over here, like in her uncle's face, you know, she made something of herself. So like like the fact that this is also a true story, like, yes, Queen. Yes, absolutely. And I just feel like, I know I personally would not have made it off that island. Listen, I have no survival skills, but girlfriend did it, and she came back. She made a scene and she came back. So like that takes brains. And I think she's just really smart. And I know it's based on a real person, so it's mostly fictional, but based on a real person. So I don't want to say, oh, she's such a smart character, but I'll say she's such a smart person. So yes, Isola is the book that wins that award for the main character, whose name I totally forgot.
Okay, another one-hit wonder. We had a lot of those this month. I'm counting that as a good thing because it means we're starting to get to a place where we can start getting a bingo, right? That's how I'm choosing to look at it. Anyway, Isola comes in under the Even Bigger Rainbow, under the color teal, and it gave us 5 points, making our grand total 52 so far.
Which book would you say had a very unique or effective structure? Multiple POV, non-linear timeline, etc.
So for this one, I think I'm going to go with The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina, because in this book, we flash back and forward. Now, is that totally unique for a timeline perspective? No. But I think the way that the timeline play worked for the story to keep us like hooked into what is really going on here and trying to get to the end of like what's happening, what, like, why is this happening and where does it end? I think it was done so well. And sometimes when you do flashbacks and flash forwards, you kind of get stuck in one or the other and you're like, oh, for Christ's sake, like, look, get on with it. Like, what happened? And this book never left me bored. It always had me being like, okay, cool, like, and then what happened? And so, and like, we would be taken out of the past timeline and put back into the present. And I'm like, no, wait, I wanted to know more. And so then it kept me like reading through the present. And then the second we switched back to the past, I'm like, wait a minute, we were just getting somewhere. And I thought it was just done so well within this book. And even though that's not a unique concept, a lot of times it's not done well. And this book did it really, really well.
Inheritance. Okay, this one gave us another hit on the BIPOC challenge, so we're chipping away at this one. Our author is Ecuadorian, and then It also comes in under the Heritage Month challenge because Hispanic Heritage was September 15th through October 15th, which is when I read it. So this one gave us 12 points, which is excellent. And that brings our grand total up to 64.
Of the books you read, which book would you say had the best relationship? Whether it's a romantic relationship, a love-hate relationship, enemies, friends, whatever. Which book played two characters off really, really well?
Okay, so the best relationship has to go to Maggie and her husband in The First Witch of Boston. I just love this book. So it was about Maggie Jones, the first woman who was prosecuted and burned at the stake in Massachusetts during the witch trials. And although the story is about her life, it heavily focuses on her husband's love for her and just the way that he saw her through everything as a person. He never turned his back on her. Like, he was like, that's his ride or die. You know what I mean? That's his girl. And I felt like their relationship was so beautiful, and it's based on a true story, so I don't feel like it's really giving anything away to say that obviously, she ended up being prosecuted and burned at the stake, and that was her ultimate outcome. But even after that, her husband still was, going about his business, trying to make sure people knew that his wife was a good person and standing up for her and not taking anybody's shit when it came to his wife. And I really admire that. I really loved that. And I just thought theirs was a beautiful love story, even though that was not the point of the book. So yeah, The First Witch of Boston.
And so The First Witch of Boston was our new release for the month of September, and it gave us 3 points, bringing us up to 67.
Of the books you read, who was the best villain? If you can't think of the villain, and who was the best antagonist?
Ooh. Okay, this is going to be kind of a stretch and a weird one, but I have a good reason for my answer. So, the book in question is You Want to Be on Top. Now, this is a nonfiction, and it is about one of the contestants from America's Next Top Model. It's about her experience on the show. Now, the villain of this story is the entire production crew, like the entire upper echelon of production at America's Next Top Model, because the way that they treated these women was heinous. It was absolutely awful. And every single chapter is just piles and piles of mistreatment and really, frankly, bullying and all sorts of negative things coming from a corporate entity aggressed against the women who are making this show, making them millions of dollars. And so, yes, it's a little bit weird because I'm calling a corporation, a production staff, the villain, but yes, they are the villain of this story, and it was really well written and told. And like, if you watched America's Next Top Model and then you read this book to find out what was going on behind the scenes, like, you will understand, like, that diabolical, and like not even in a funny way. Like, it was disgusting.
You want to be on top? Excuse me. This one comes in our By the Hundreds challenge and the 200s category. I think it was it 274 pages? Something like that. And then also in the nonfiction challenge under memoir, and it earned us 8 points, bringing our total to 75.
Which book would you say had the most vivid or immersive world building? And which book might have overdone it where it actually detracted from the story?
The most immersive world building, this feels like it's a kind of a funny answer, would be The Mercies. I guess you could call it, yeah, it's world building. So this is also based on a true story, and it's in the 17th century witch trials going on in the Scandinavian region of the world. And the way that this author described all of the scenery, when I tell you that I read this in the blazing heat of September and I was freezing because we were in a frozen little island off of the coast of Denmark or something, and everything was frozen at all points in time basically, and it was frigid and disgusting and dirty, and like I felt uncomfortable physically reading the book because I was cold and I felt like I needed to take a shower. And I just, every single time she described something or the smell, like that is the atmosphere that she set, which I guess if it's a real, like it's a book about the real world and not a fantasy world, that is world building. So I'm going to go with The Mercies for the best world building because it just had me in the story and ready to take a nice hot shower when all I was doing was sitting on my couch reading a book. So yeah, The Mercies.
All right, the Mercies helped us out in the Around the World Challenge for Europe, and as well as the Even Bigger Rainbow Challenge because this is definitively red. It only earned us 1 point though, so we're at 76.
I can't think of one that was really the opposite. Like, I can't think of a book that I read last month that was just not really good at the world building part of it. I felt like they all did a really decent job at the world building.
Okay, that's fair. So, which book felt shallow or preachy in its message? In other words, which book gets the most shallow book award for September?
I'm gonna use the word shallow out of that, and I'm gonna award that to Black as Night. And so that is the middle book of the Darkwood trilogy. And like I first said, I don't think that should have been a trilogy. I think it should have been a duology. So books 2 and 3, a good portion of them both were like unnecessary, which is why I'm like, you could just cut out a book. But book 2 in particular, just it didn't really have a lot of substance to it. And I guess you could say it was a little bit preachy because a lot of what we were being told in that book was about how the princess was supposed to behave, about how, you know, things are supposed to go when there's magic. And it was just kind of like, all right, cool. But then again, there just wasn't a lot of substance to the book whatsoever. It was a middle book that didn't need to exist. And it's a huge part of the reason why I was like, this should have been a duology, because again, there wasn't substance to it. So I'm calling that shallow book. So there goes the shallow book award, Black as Night.
Okay, as promised, we're now going to fill in that middle square for our trilogy in the series Staircase, and we've now completed our trilogy section of the series Staircase with Black as Night. And it also brings us a house pet under Animals Are Better because it features a cat. This one gave us 2 points and brings us up to 78.
All right. By contrast, which book would you say explored its themes the best?
Okay, the book that explored its theme the best, I'm going to have to give that to The Library at Hellebore. Helebore? I'm not really sure. This book, if I picked what I'm going to talk about and we're sticking to the subject, that's this book. Like, we did not veer off course. This is dark academia. This contains a lot of body horror, and it is frightening on every single page. And I like Cassandra Khaw, they did their thing in this book. They didn't veer off path. They stuck to the horror behind this book. They stuck to the academia theme. Like, it just did it so well. And I came to solidify through reading this book that I do not like body horror. I was grossed out. Like, my stomach was turning reading this book. I told you I do not like to DNF a book, so I finished it, girl. But my God. Yeah, Cassandra Khaw did the thing in writing this book. And I looked them up, and I understand that they primarily write a lot of body horror, so I will not be continuing with any more Cassandra Khaw. But if I could stomach it, I absolutely would, because they, like I said, they stuck to what they were intending to write about. So that was The Library at Hellebore.
The Library at Hellebore brings us another entry in our subgenres of choice under horror, which full disclosure, I changed this from something else. I don't even remember what it used to be, but I changed it from something else because I didn't even know that horror fantasy or fantasy horror was a thing. And this is just such a better choice. Anyway, so that's that. And then it also counts in the queer alphabet because our author is non-binary. So that brings us to a total of 84 points because the book gave us 8 points.
Okay, we're nearing the end now. Which book would you say had the most satisfying ending? And which one do you feel fell flat?
Okay. So I have one book left of the list that I read last month. And I would actually say that it had the most satisfying ending of all of them. And that is A Fae in Finance. Now, listen to me. A Fae in Finance did not meet its marketing goals. The way they were marketing that book, absolutely incorrect. That's not what this book was about. You're like, oh, cute, like funny, ha ha ha, like A Fae in Finance. And I talked about that in my reading vlog that I'll link up here for you. It missed the mark with what they were marketing the book as. But what the book actually is, it's fantastic. I mentioned that in the reading vlog, I mentioned that crippling depression and adventures in Feyland actually go really well together, and I kind of like ha-ha'd about that, but like no, truly the story, the way that it was written was so well done. And at the end of it, I mean, I'm not going to give it away, but at the end of it, the way things came together, it was so good. It was so good. And I'm very upset that the book was marketed as this cutesy little, like, if TikTok wrote a book, like, I'm looking for a Fae in Finance. I'm upset that they marketed it that way. Now, I get, like, how that might have been tempting because that is what got me to pick it up. But I think it's lending, or it will lend, because at the time of this, it hasn't been released yet. I think it will lend to a lot of confusion and a lot of people picking up the book when that's not what they want in a book. And I think it will ultimately get the book some low ratings. So that kind of sucks because it was so well done and it ended on such a good note. And sometimes a book ends in a way that you're expecting it to end and you're like, yeah, okay, I thought that's what was going to happen. And this one didn't really do that. It ended in a way that I wanted it to end, but not in the way that I thought it would have ended, if that makes a lot of sense. Without me saying how the book ended, that's how I felt about the ending. So it was really, really, really well done.
Ugh, I love this book so much. In retrospect, I think I should have rated it higher. Anyway, I used A Fae in Finance under Spooky Creatures to meet our Fae folk prompt, and it gave us 10 points, and that brings us up to 94.
I'm trying to think which one fell which one fell flat at the end. I don't feel like any of them fell flat at the end. I definitely like the Bleeding Woods fell flat in the middle. The end though, no, they all came together by the end. Even the ones that were rough in the middle, they came together by the end. So none of them fell flat at the end, and I think that's good.
Okay, so here's our overall bingo board, and I mean, it's looking good, you guys. We're pretty close on By the Hundreds, and then Series Staircase, we're 50% of the way through that. Disability Rep is only one off. There was another, Spooky Creatures is well on its way. I think Avatar, like I mentioned, I'm technically done with that, but I'm going for all of the bonus points on that one. And then the Queer Alphabet, we are so freaking close to getting this one finished. So this board's feeling really good. Now, with the points, I'm not really sure what happened. I'm showing we're at 94, but when I did my calculations otherwise, we're at 96 for the month. So there's something tricky going on there. We ended last month with 112 points, and now we're at 213 points. It should be 208, but just a note that I got 5 bonus points for finishing watching Little Fires Everywhere after I posted last month's video. So that's where we're at, 213 points overall, and that was a really good reading month.
Okay. Time for our final questions. We're going to need some winners and we're going to need some losers. What book would you say impacted you the most emotionally? And which one, take it or leave it.
Ooh, okay. Let me refer to my full list of books. Let's see. Okay, so impacted me most emotionally. I was pretty sure this answer, but I just wanted to scan the list and make sure that I didn't want to change that. And that's going to be One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This. Like, I will not stop talking about how that book has just changed my entire way of thinking about capitalism, about American politics, about foreign, foreign policy, about immigration, like all. That was a library read, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna go buy it. As I don't want to call it a shelf trophy because like that sounds like it's something for like a cutesy book, but I think I'm gonna go buy it because I feel like I need to reread it and redigest it again. Like I need to read it and sit with it another time to probably pick up even more from it. So One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This, hands down, like the most impactful, the most emotional, like the most everything. That's probably like book of the month. And the opposite of that, would be The Bleeding Woods. It pulled itself together in the end, but I almost just didn't really care by that point. I finished it because I don't DNF. And ultimately, I'm glad I finished it because I was able to give it 3 stars. Like in my ranking system, it rated it 3-star, but I wasn't that into it. It just kind of meh. Unfortunately.
Final question.
Okay.
If your viewers on YouTube out there had to buy one book in October, besides the ones you just mentioned for your most emotional book, what book would you recommend that they should read?
This was really close. So I was examining the list to make sure like I didn't want to change my mind. My first instinct, and this is the one that I'm going to stick with, is The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. Psh. we got to get into book 2 because it was so good. Yeah, and that twist at the end, like you might be reading it thinking, oh yeah, cool, I got it, I know how it's going to go. That twist at the end, girl. So yeah, The Prison Healer is the one that you have to, if you don't do nothing else, you need to read The Prison Healer. And then report back to me because I want to know what you thought about it. So.
Alright, so final thing. Just give us a general synopsis of your experience this month with your books.
I think this was my biggest reading month of the year so far. I don't think I've read 17 books or more than that in any other month. And overall, I had a good time. I laughed, I cried, whatever you want to, oh my god, I almost barfed at the library at Hellebore. And so I went through a full range of emotions in these 17 books, and I don't regret reading any of them. Even The Bleeding Woods, I don't regret reading it. But yeah, that was a lot. I am shocked that I read 17 books. I did not realize it was 17 books until I was counting them up at the end. And I was like, oh, girl, that's a lot. So, yes. Anyway, those are the books that I read in the month of September. I don't know that I'm going to top that in October, but I totally had fun doing the recap, the September Wrapped video this way with questions coming from Mr. Sabrina Reads and Roams instead of just me talking about the books. So since you made it this far, it means you kind of like me, and I want to say thank you for hanging out with me while we recap all of these books. And if you wouldn't mind hitting the like or the subscribe or the share or all 3 of those buttons down there for me, I would very much appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the very next video.